So our next speaker for today is Ruth Mwizeere. So Ruth is an environmental scientist from Uganda who's creating awareness on how landlocked countries can contribute to ocean restoration and protection. She's currently the Programmes Officer at InfoNile, a cross-boundary geojournalism project of Water Journalists Africa that promotes investigative science-based environmental journalism in the Nile Basin. She's a Youth in Landscapes alumnus and a member of the Wild Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council. In 2018, Ruth was recognised as one of the top 10 landscape leaders globally and was part of the Global Landscapes Forum in Bonn 2018. And Ruth is joined by three amazing panellists also. So I will briefly introduce them, though I do think that Ruth will be giving them a full introduction. But we have Mwizeere Sandra, we have Megan Lee, and we have Alice Okonji. So welcome everybody, and I will pass it over now to you, Ruth, to introduce a fuller introduction to your panelists and take it away.
So I believe Ruth is having some audio issues right now, but if your panelists want to introduce themselves one by one while you're working on that, Ruth, you are all welcome to introduce yourselves if you want to.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Alice. My name is Alice Okonji. I am colleagues with Ruth. I am a communications for development specialist. I'm currently the communications person at InfoNile. So maybe I will let the other panelists introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Nirere. I'm a Ugandan, and I'm the founder to the End Plastic Pollution Uganda. And we are trying to raise awareness and also do promote action around how to end plastic pollution. So I'm glad to be part of this conversation. Thank you for hosting me.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for giving us the space to talk. My name is Megan Lee. I'm a multimedia journalist with InfoNile, originally from the US, and currently working on a documentary about the FlipFloppy project that should be out next week sometime.
Excellent. It's great to have all of you with us today. Ruth, I'm not sure if you want to try speaking. I can see that you're back potentially with us, but I'm not sure if the technical issues have resolved. Okay, I'm not sure that Ruth can hear us, and at the minute we certainly can't hear her.
Okay, I think maybe because Ruth is struggling to join, maybe I'll just introduce what we wanted to discuss today. And hi, Taylor, thanks for joining us. I just see you're 8. Thank you. It's really a pleasure, and it's nice that we are all here. So what really we wanted to look at today was how collaborative water stories in the Nile Basin. We were going to see how media is being used as a tool to promote collaboration in beating plastic pollution. So you've met us, and we worked together with Sadrak. Sadrak already introduced himself. So I'll just let you know who we are as InfoNile. InfoNile, we are a group of collaborative journalists, cross-border. We are a team of over 500 journalists, and our mission really is to just cover uncritical stories, to uncover critical stories on water issues in the 11 countries in the Nile River Basin. So I know you know where the Nile River goes by. It goes through 11 countries, and Uganda is one of them. So the InfoNile team, we are based in Uganda, and as you know, Uganda is one of the landlocked countries in Africa. We are a project of Water Journalists Africa. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the River Nile Basin. So It's a shared transboundary river basin. It's one of the longest rivers in the world. I think there's even there's debate as to whether it is actually the longest river in the world. And it goes through the countries it goes through are Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi. It goes all the way up to Egypt, Kenya. So and it serves more than 270 million people, and of course with different climates, different cultures, different histories. And then we realized that the challenge that arose from a shared water resource was that there's increasing environmental crisis. So there's climate change, there's water scarcity, there's biodiversity threats, and there's a big disconnect between some of these challenges. So the journalists and scientists, we realized there's a big gap. So whenever journalists do any stories, we found out that they did not have enough data to back up their stories. So their stories most of the time lacked the scientific evidence, and many of the scientific reports that have been done, we also realized that the scientists don't have enough media knowledge to share their research out there. So, and then there's this is because of a lot of issues like lack of resources and training for journalists to produce data-based and actionable stories. So these are some of the challenges that we experience. And the thing also about River now is you find there's been a lot of debate, a lot of what do you call it? A lot of issues that arise. So like water wars. So many times when you hear about River Nile, you often hear about the water war between maybe Egypt and Ethiopia or South Sudan, about the dams that are being built. And so our approach as InfoNile is we work to tell local and international stories on environmental and scientific topics. I really want to share with you my screen, so just give me a minute. And as I figure, I was really sure Ruth was going to be able to share her screen, so I'm going to disappear, but I hope my screen comes up. Where is my screen? I'm using my phone, so I hope that I don't let you into my there. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, great, Ruth, you're back. Thank you. You're here. I was just talking about our approaches InfoNile and how we work to tell international and local stories. So what we do often is we identify a common theme that has cross-border importance. So in the past, we've worked on stories like biodiversity in transboundary lakes, and we looked at very many of the stories. We also worked on plastic pollution of Lake Victoria. We'll be talking about this very shortly. We also have worked on water scarcity during COVID-19. This was one of our projects sometime last year when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out. And we realized that many communities did not have enough water, and especially they needed water to wash their hands and just for personal use, but there wasn't any water amidst the pandemic. So we worked on a project. We've also done climate change solutions, amazing stuff that we find out, innovative technologies that arise around climate change. And we've done wildlife trafficking and conservation. We actually just launched our wildlife project today. And we've also done foreign land deals, award-winning projects. So the way we work is we source credible data that is like cross-cutting. So we look at like data that is is up to date, is credible. So we source this using different tools, different partners. We've often worked with Code for Africa to help us get data. And then we always call for pitches. So many times you'll see an ad where we are asking journalists to send in a pitch to cover a story on a theme, on one of the themes that we'd have selected. And then most of the time we always encourage these journalists to work together, like so radio, TV, print, online. We encourage them to pitch in pairs sometimes. And then in partnerships with like the CTA, I just mentioned, Code for Africa, CFA, we mentor and train journalists in data journalism and in environmental science reporting. So data visualization is one of the key gaps that we noted that journalists don't have. So sometimes they get the right information, but they don't know how to present it. So we train them how to make interesting data visualizations. So some interesting maps. We've done loads of maps. Check out our website if you can. It's www.infonile.org. And then after we work with them, most of these journalists are often from local media houses. So we always encourage them to publish their stories. And sometimes these stories are in their local languages. And when they do that, whether the story is in a local language or whether the pitch was in English, we try to translate it to the regional languages. So the 4 regional languages along the river now are Arabic, Amharic, Swahili, and French. And then we publish these stories on our website. So we end up creating some really interesting multimedia projects. Check out the one we just launched today. It's on wildlife, so you can see all the different countries and all the different stories. So they are really just a cross-border multimedia projects. We incorporate tools like the maps, drone videos, satellite imagery, graphics, amazing photos. I'm sure Megan will share later. And then, yeah, we create actionable interactive maps from these. It's very interesting. I don't know if Ruth, you want to stop me and maybe engage, or you want me to tell you about all the data-based environmental science journalism and some of the stories we've published?
Yeah, it's okay. You can go ahead.
Oh, okay, great. Then I'll share with you some of our success stories. We've published over 130 stories. So we give journalists grants to go and cover these stories. And the one that might really interest you was the climate change solutions that we focused on the youth. So some of the solutions that the youth have come up with to combat climate change. And then the most recent one that we did that I'm really eager to get to was the plastic pollution in Lake Victoria, where we only worked with female journalists and we commissioned them to follow the FlipFloppy expedition route and map stories. And the stories they came back with were shocking. We'll get to that in a short time. But yes, we've really published loads of stories. I really encourage you, if you're interested in environmental journalism, check out our website. You really like some of the stories that we've done there. And then I also mentioned earlier that we train journalists. So yes, we've trained many journalists in data and science journalism, and these are just 50% of them are women, which is always nice. And then yeah, we mentor them. We mentor journalists for a long period of time, some even going for 6 months. We've had various training sessions with Code for Africa, and always our trainings are carried out in different languages. And yeah, these are some of the things we are working on now. We are currently working on a platform to connect scientists and journalists because of the gap I mentioned earlier, where you find scientists don't know how to share their research and journalists don't know how to access scientists or where to even. So this platform will be launching it by the end of the month. and we'll be calling out to journalists and scientists, and then it's a platform where you can just log in and find a scientist near you. It's for lack of a better word, like it's a dating site for scientists and journalists. Well, if I put it that way. So, but it's not a dating site. It's a networking platform for scientists and journalists. And yeah, we hope to launch this next at the end of the month. We've got great impact. So many times people wonder whether media has an impact, and I really think it does, because some of our journalists have reported that their stories led to a government investigation, which is something you always want. And some have even reported where an institution acted on like something that happened. So, which is also really good. We've also had policy change. This lady you see here is Dorcas Wangera. Dorcas is one of the lead journalists in Kenya, and she said she did a story about pangolins. When the pandemic just broke, many people said it was because of the pangolins, and so she did a story entitled "Pangolins in the Dock." And she did research wondering to see how and if the pangolin had anything to do with a COVID-19 outbreak. And she said, when I pitched people, pangolin and pandemic in a newsroom meeting, the story idea was snubbed. So essentially she wasn't going to produce it if she hadn't pitched it to InfoNile. So she did, and we worked on it. It's one of the stories that you'll find on our website. Pangolins in the Dock. It's an amazing story. I hope you get to read it. Yeah. So maybe I'll let Ruth continue and see how we work with organizations like SADRAX and towards ending pollution in Lake Victoria, and how that really just ends up in the ocean.
Thank you, Alice. Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth. Very sorry about the network issue. Shadrach, would you like to tell us about your approach as youth environmental activist? How are you using media as a tool in ending plastic pollution?
Hello, everyone. My lighting is really not good, so I would suggest, if possible, I can do off the video. Is it okay? Anybody can say yes, you can hear me?
Go ahead and start the video.
Okay, I see, that's fine. All right, my name is Sandra Nirere. Nirere, I am a Ugandan, a village boy. I come from Chiboga district. And I'm an activist, a climate and environmental activist. I've been doing this for the last mainstream 3 years, but I'm a victim of this. I grew up from an environment where I am really directly exposed to the dangers of a changing climate, a breaking down environment, and all these degradation effects that we are looking at. So growing up here, I have really witnessed what is happening, and I'm glad to see that now I can try to do something, and I am glad that the media, people like InfoNile, come up to give us platform to do this. So a little bit about the End Plastic Pollution Initiative. We've been doing this for the last 2 years now. It started as a campaign against companies that are producing plastics, and us calling them to action and to see how far they can go to solve the problem that they are creating. And we've been looking at 5 points since then, trying to inspire a no plastic approach in businesses and sustainable business practices straight away within businesses. And also to look into other areas like climate change and plastic pollution, the awareness around plastics, and other areas looking at digital use of disseminating information on plastic pollution. So we've been coming in 6 districts and in 16 districts, and we've covered exposing plastic pollution in villages, lakes, rivers, and our own communities. And since then, we've tried to expose this as far as many places that plastic is really affecting. So just a little bit in a nutshell about plastic pollution and our movement and what we are doing. To come back to the question on how we are using media as a tool for activism, number one, first of all, I will really say that being an activist in the global south is not simple. We always have to fight for space or for coverage to see that you get your story out there. But also media has been playing a very big role, and we have been utilizing every chance we get, either using digital media, trying to learn tools that you can use to create stories, creating content that is shareable on other platforms like social media platforms, but also engaging with journalists like InfoNile that are covering stories on plastic pollution, and in these stories they are trying to give space to what we are trying to say, and we are voicing solutions. So them trying to see that we can bring our stories on board for them to have a reach to a wider audience, that is really something that we have been trying to leverage on. So as activists, we have been viewing media in also different other ways, but also the ability for media to also break barriers in spreading the information that we do share, but also the fact that media houses like InfoNile have come up to produce data-based information that we can also share, and breaking down the science that we have been always talking about. Many times when we use the math, the numbers, and the science around a lot of these challenges as activists that we fight for, it's really a problem. But when media journalists come up to break down and visualize this data, make it more readable, more simple, more understandable by the local people and also the layman, it really makes us very happy, because we see that at least people can get to understand what we say. So generally, it's a little bit I can share about how we have been exploring the role of media in our activism work, and also how we are trying to do more, because I really would say as activists here, we haven't done much in exploring the space and also the opportunities offered by media. And there hasn't been that much reach between the two, the activist side and the media side. We need to also look into that. So thank you very much. I'll be glad to share more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadrach. As we think about how the media is currently covering Lake Victoria and inland water pollution, the main question we've had in the past month as we are promoting World Ocean Day activities has been, what does inland what do inland resources have to do with the ocean? And there are 4 rules of ecology, and my favorite is the first rule of ecology. It says everything is connected to everything else. And the connection of the River Nile or Lake Victoria to the ocean isn't a far-fetched one, it's a direct one, because research has shown that the majority of the plastic pollution that is transported to the ocean is taken by rivers. So that is the linkage between what we are doing and ocean conservation. like Alice, my colleague, had said earlier, this year, earlier, we gave, in partnership with Code for Africa and GRS Biodiversity Foundation, we supported 11 journalists from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania to report data-driven stories on plastic pollution. Slide 14, please. On plastic pollution and solutions. So, like she said, we had a team of female journalists that did stories, TV, radio, print, and online on specific locations. And this was in sync with the FlipFloppy expedition at particular places where the FlipFloppy expedition was going to pass. That is where we had the journalists do the stories. My colleague Megan is going to talk to us about the FlipFloppy expedition and the documentary she has been working on. Megan, if you're there, please. Hello,
Hi,
Megan.
everyone. Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes, so I had such a unique opportunity in March to join the FlipFloppy Boat, which I don't know if you know much about it, but it's the first 100% recycled plastic dhow in the world, I think. And it was made in Lamu, Kenya. And the first expedition it did was going from down the coast of Kenya to Tanzania and sparking different campaign events in the places that it stopped on the coast. And for the first time, they brought the expedition this past March to Lake Victoria. So instead of just going along the coast, they moved the boat inland to a landlocked area. And it started in Kisumu, Kenya. And then it went around the coast of Lake Victoria, north to the Ugandan cities, and then it went south, ending up in Mwizeere, Tanzania. I was only able to join that expedition for the week that it was in Uganda. But then I was able to join later on in Mwizeere, and again, when they brought the boat from Mwizeere to the coast, going back up to Lamu where it came from. So I spent quite a bit of time with the FlipFloppy team and the sailors and all the events that were on the way. I was able to document that, interview a lot of different activists. And I just gathered like this huge amount of content in, let's say, like 4 to 6 weeks following the FlipFloppy Boat. And at first, like coming back, as a journalist, it was probably the biggest project I've covered because it was just such so much content. Like there's so many people involved. We met activists, artists, policymakers, like just a treasure of people to interview and like pick their brains. And so when I came back, I'm like, how am I going to formulate a documentary about like all of these different subjects, plastic pollution, the expedition, like the whole logistics of sailing, because that was a huge part of it. It was like just managing the safety of like having 20 people on board the FlipFloppy boat and having a support vessel. So it's just a huge operation, and I feel so lucky to have had the opportunity. And so I learned a lot in terms of like journalism, especially going on through this expedition. And the first thing was like realizing like how unique a moment it was to be with this movement, like this really powerful movement that was inspired by 100% recycled plastic now. And using all of the time that I had with the boat to get the key interviews and like find like what are the most compelling stories to tell, to connect this like powerful boat and plastic revolution movement with the rest of the world and like what's happening in the world. So realizing that like the time that I got with each interview subject was so precious. And like there was so much happening throughout the expedition, like events that like I constantly had to chase down people to interview them and make sure that I had like the right questions to ask on spot because these people were running around. And also like learning the importance of getting down the names of all the people that I interviewed so that I can feature them later. I can name them correctly when I mention them in an article or I feature them in the documentary. And also like just realizing that I have to focus on capturing everything in the moment, and then later I can go back to the content and the stories kind of just come out at you. Like you just realize like, oh, this is, for example, there was a scientist on board the FlipFloppy boat called Bahati Mayoma, and he was conducting the first surface to deep water research on microplastics in Lake Victoria. So that was like a key story that I realized I should focus on. Because there's actually, like if you look online for research on microplastics in freshwater lakes in Africa, there's like, it's scant, like there's not much at all. Compared to maybe other countries or like the ocean. So that was like a key story that I wanted to focus on, and it popped out as I was on the expedition, like watching him do the research. It was really fascinating. Yeah, so basically just having this intuition of what is compelling, what connects to audiences. And then, yeah, and once you realize like what you should focus on, like honing in on it and like learning all this background. And actually, we have a really great intern with InfoNile from UC Berkeley called Madison Erdahl. And she's been helping me like expand on that particular story. So this whole story of Bahati on the FlipFloppy boat collecting data daily on the boat, like throughout the lake. But then people will be asking like, so what is actually the plastic situation in the lake and in the world? So Maddie was able to do a lot of background research to support the story, and that helped me focus on him as a character in the documentary. So I focused on him a lot. And yeah, also like for thinking a lot about the storytelling aspect, and not just like the content of the expedition, but like focusing on the characters within the expedition, like the founders of the FlipFloppy project, Ben Morrison, Ali Skanda, and Dipesh Pabari are all very interesting characters. So I just always had my audio recorder out, like to make sure I catch like their off the fly like reactions to things, their like random snippets of inspiration, because like them and also everyone else on the FlipFloppy team were just like this really dense group of like the most passionate people that I've ever seen in one spot, like so dedicated to the plastic revolution. It was just like really inspiring. So just trying to capture all their characters and allowing that to come through in the documentary. I think that's mostly all I have for now.
Thank you very much, Megan. So Megan's documentary shall be screening on our celebration for World Oceans Day, although we've had to postpone it because of the COVID situation in Uganda, but you should all look out for it. It's going to be really amazing. So from the plastic pollution stories that were done by the female journalists, we made that nice magazine that you're seeing. We made it, and the front and back cover are all made from recycled plastic, locally called Kavera. So the book contains the different stories by all the different journalists, where you see the little marks on the slide, the red dots. That is where the stories were done. So within the book, we have the stories, and the book contains QR codes to the multimedia stories. We exhibited these stories at the FlipFloppy expedition, and the books are up for sale. There's an online copy available. You can reach us on our email or reach out to us for a copy of the magazine. But we also have hard copy books that are on for sale, and this helps us support our plastic pollution story projects. So every story had data visualized. The reason we focus on data visualization is because sometimes there's very interesting statistics in data, but we are unable to communicate them to the general public. And we usually need to have some interesting ways to visualize this data so that the general public can be able to understand it. Next slide, please. This is a visualization that was done by Code for Africa, and all our stories usually have data visualizations, and this is one of the ways that we encourage science communication. And so part of our goal in promoting science communication, still in Celebrate World Ocean Day, we are organizing a competition for students to compete in science communication, and they need to communicate research articles that are on plastic pollution in the Nile Basin. So this event has been postponed, but we are looking forward to a very colorful event and creating awareness on our impact on the ocean, even as a landlocked country. So the picture that is being shared, the pictures were taken from an exhibition that we did to end plastic pollution in March 2021. Sorry about the date. It was a really colorful event. There were all kinds of people, young children, old people from all walks of life.
I am afraid Ruth might be experiencing some major network issues, network challenges. So, but whatever she's trying to explain is from the exhibition, we had a really great turnout. We were joined by school children, like you can see, and we realized that one of the things we are currently doing and want to move forward with is to do advocacy at like school level, because again, the children and the youth are the future. So we are very happy to have had interacted with many young children who are very interested. And one of the other questions that we wanted to really also look at is what kind of innovations are working or like are needed in the media, and how can media do better to cover these cross-border stories. So maybe Sadrak, if you're still here, do you have any, you can share some of the recommendations that the media can do better to cover some of these cross-border water issues?
Okay. I will go question one, innovations that are needed in the media. I think we need to look into the use of simple tools, that can enable story sharing, content sharing, making videos, making cool audios, and things that are easier a bit, that can be used by the young people, because for us as activists at our ages, we really want TikTok, we want WhatsApp, we want Twitter, we want Facebook. So if what's lacking in our media is to break down and step away from the prints and the TVs and the radios, but also to look into how best they can, start creating short documentary stories, people that can see, using different simple apps that people can learn and also can be used to share well content from many, and also cover many ways. You can share a video with a story, with an audio, with a song, so there is a way. This is really missing so much here on ground, because many of our journalists have failed to adapt to go to to be like the InfoNiles of this time. So, and this is so much into the old league of media houses, yet they are the big people and they have a lot of platforms. So we want to see this. Every time I visit the social media hand of Daily Monitor, sorry to mention, it's always links. But when you visit BBC, you can see a link, you see a photo, you see a video, you see. So this, we need to do this. We need to break down more and tell stories in a more attractive way, so that younger people like us can be able to make them shareable and also can like them. It's something we need to also look at. But also the issue of art and the use of of visualization, of visualizing tools like what InfoNile is showcasing. It is something that we have to also keep doing more, because through different art and different ways of showcasing data, there are, you can help researchers, but also can help a local person understand when they see something that is painted or that is drawn, showing the effect of plastic, or something that can be done to avoid plastic. And also, if this content is covered through media, to make its output more attractive, more receptible enough to many people, it will be really very good to break boundaries and to attract. Another thing is to help attract young people to consume the data that comes out of the media, the media people and journalists that come with very many good stories. Recommendations on how media can do better to cover those cross-border water issues. First of all, we need to interconnect them and also to find out how they are all linked. Ruth just mentioned something which is really very important, that the rivers, River Nile stems from Uganda and it is going up to Egypt. So if we are looking at our stories here, how can they benefit people in Egypt to learn from on what can be done? Are they making recommendations for them? Or we are only focusing on our own problem? If we are going to make information or data cross-border, then we have to make it make it covering, to make its coverage be wide enough to accommodate those people's interests, but also for journalists and media to cover stories at a wider perspective than writing someone's opinion. I normally read many articles and I find an opinionated kind of writing, but this is not good because you have to cover the story extensively in the little space that you have, such that someone can tackle a lot of issues. In that way, we will be able to cater for what other areas are also facing in relation to the problem. When it comes to water issues, it is really something very, very important. And I'm glad to see that InfoNile is coming out to highlight these issues. So we need to also look into the issue of voicing solutions, because when we talk about plastic pollution and its extent of reach in our water bodies, you find that it is going to cause a lot of serious damage to many water sources, as it breaks down to form microplastics, as it blocks rivers, as it does a lot of different damage. So solutions, it is one thing that we have to look at. I have the magazine of InfoNile. One of the lucky people to have it. I've read a lot of stories that are showcasing solutions that can be done to fight plastic pollution, to improve water access, water quality. All these, I think it is something that media has to keep doing, because we need to also see that we are not only highlighting the problem, but we are also highlighting the solutions to these problems, because the more we balance content from both sides, the more we help the public to know what to do and to prepare for what is the outcome, but also to push the conversation around the action, the solution. If we are looking at climate action as a solution to water issues, then the solutions should be voiced by those with the platform, and that's the media. Plastic pollution as a crisis, it has a lot of underlying effects, but it has a lot of solutions. We need to see more of those highlighted in the articles or the good stories that many journalists are telling, and particularly around plastic and water issues. So that's something I can also add on. But also other issues that we can look at is how best to communicate the value that comes with us solving these challenges. That is something media in Africa in general should look at, because we have spoken so much about these problems, but they have opportunities. So we need to help public and governments and policymakers value this opportunity and communicate it to the people and show them what is in for us, what's the opportunity for us to when we solve this. Thank you very much. I've been told it's time, but we'll have more of these discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shadrach. So our future plans in documenting plastic pollution in the Nile Basin is we are thinking about and taking action towards documenting plastic pollution right from the source. There are very many sources. There's the source in Uganda, there's a source in Burundi, there's very many sources for the Nile. So we would like to document plastic pollution straight from the source to the mouth. We follow the plastic, what are the changes, when does it increase, best, then up to the mouth of the Nile, the Mediterranean Sea. Thank you very much for being part of this session. There's a question that we had in the chat, and I think I'm going to direct it towards Megan. What advice, what tip would you give to young people who want to get involved in ocean conservation through media? Megan, maybe in a minute, you could let us know. Hello, Megan?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Here. Yeah, so first of all, to get involved in ocean conservation, that's a really broad topic. So first of all, like, I think for journalists and media makers in general, it's good to specify like very specific interests. So maybe for ocean conservation, what about it like is really interesting to you personally that you feel you can get yourself like very passionate about in a way that you can tell something compelling or find something compelling about that topic to tell. So for ocean conservation, let's say you're really passionate about plankton and their declining numbers in certain areas, or something like maybe they're declining numbers on the coast of East Africa, like very specific. Then you do like just learn as much as you can about it as possible. And once you just gather like just a ton of information, you'll start to like get a feel for what is really interesting that you've found that people aren't talking about. Like, what aren't people talking about, but that you feel is something compelling, something missing from the dialogue. And then, so once you figure out like your topic, then you figure out through media. Media is also very broad. So in which way, in which platform do you want to tell it? Like, are you really good at speaking, or are you really good at making videos, creating art, visuals? So first specialize in the topic, then you can figure out like the most effective way to communicate the topic based on your strengths or your interests. And yeah, like I think the most important thing is probably just starting off with your interests, because you want to get some in-depth knowledge. And like there's so many topics in the world that are being talked about that it's really easy to become an expert in a certain specific topic, like plankton on the coast of East Africa, for example. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Megan. I think that's a very insightful piece of advice. Thank you everyone for being in this session, and for any more information about what we do, please reach us on www.infonile.org or info@infonile.org. That's our email address. We look forward to interacting with all of you soon. Thank you very much. Back to the Ocean Project team.
Thank you so much, Ruth, Megan, Sandra, and Alice, for that really insightful session about how important media is in conservation and how you're all making a real difference in that way. I think it's one of those ways that sometimes people don't realise can be a really valuable way of making a difference. But I certainly think that everybody who's here today, and everybody as well who's either watching live on YouTube or watching later on YouTube, will be certainly a bit more ready to be able to make a difference through media for our ocean. So thank you so much for all joining us today. And thank you also especially for persevering despite the technical difficulties. That is the way of things now. So yeah, thank you very much all of you for being part of the Youth-A-Thon.